Today's lesson is all about color theory, and obviously color is a very important part of what we do, and everything we do on cakes, in sugar flowers, in air drying clay really all relates to color. So it is a very important part of obviously doing a cake, making sugar flowers, making air drying clay flowers. And it's something that is something people a lot of times struggle with, not sort of understanding basically the principle of color. And so I'm going to talk a little bit today about, first of all, like gel colors, paste colors that we use mostly in obviously sugar-based products, but of course you can also use the gel colors and paste colors in air drying clay. Then we're going to talk a little bit about dusting powders. We're going to talk also about the Pantone color chart. We're going to talk also about air drying clay, all right, and just about using color in air drying clay. So you have your download. So this is the download here on the color theory. All right. So this just really goes through the basics of color theory. Okay. Now, color theory, as I said, it talks here about using gel and paste colors with the help of a color wheel or coloring chart will help you understand color combinations, such as, for example, mixing purple and pink will produce like a magenta color, okay? If you remember, if you watched my making gum paste episode, when I did that gum paste, I used some pink and purple. I actually started off with pink and added a little bit of purple just to sort of change the vibrancy or the shade of the pink. So that's something that you can understand using a color chart. Now, this is a color chart that you would buy online. You can find this really in any art supply store. Sort of like a stationery store. I mean, they're very easy to find, and basically you have all of the colors around the outside, and then like this one, you know, it tells you if you add yellow to blue, you're going to get green, and then if you add it to blue, violet. If you add it to violet, you see it's going to make a nice sort of almost like a chestnut brown color. But it just helps you understand the sort of the basic principles of color theory, and goes through the different colors. All right, there are all different types of charts. You know, these ones are obviously using pure color and then adding gray and different ones. So these are you know, a little bit more into sort of art type of things. But as I said, this is just really a very basic color wheel. Now also you can go on to, I've just put color charts on my iPad for cake, all right? So the thing is there's lots of companies that have, you know, like for example, this is from McCormick, which is a food color in the United States you buy in the grocery store. But see, it's like you do like 6 drops of blue and 4 drops of green. That's a liquid color. All right, and the liquid colors, I talk about that a little bit later on. That's why you buy more from a cake decorating supply company, because they're going to be more concentrated. But this sort of shows you how you would change the different colors. So like, you know, 50 drops of green and 4 drops of blue will give you this sort of bright appley green color. But there are dozens and dozens of different, and this is like, for example, an Americolor one. All right, so this is an Americolor chart there. And then this talks about, you know, you bright and bold colors. And then those of you in the UK, they also have, so here we've got the Sugar Flare ones. So Sugar Flare is in the UK. These are mostly American ones, but as I said, you know, this is Wilton ones. But there's hundreds of different, you know, variations. This one is on, like, for example, using candy melt. So if you take two red and 1 yellow candy melt to make like orange and stuff. But if you're using, as I said, those of you in the UK, the Sugar Flare one, so Sugar Flare colors, you know, they have, this is specifically for Sugar Flare, okay? And so this shows you all the different Sugar Flare colors, you see, and it shows you the different blends, you know, going from very pale green to a darker green. And then they also have some different mixed ones, all right? Now also, Sugar Flare does have a color called eucalyptus. We had a couple of questions when the wedding foliage mold came out about, just gonna get the eucalyptus here. And about mixing up eucalyptus color, and as I said, just going to get the colors, but they have, as I said, the Sugar Flare color chart. Just bringing this up, they have a eucalyptus color here. I'm just trying to find the color. But anyway, they have a eucalyptus color, and the eucalyptus color is as I said, it gives you a really good eucalyptus. But like, for example, in the United States, we can't sell sugar flare colors because the different countries have different rules, like European Community, for example, like Pro Gels, the sugar rainbow dust Pro Gels, we can only sell 11 of them in the US. So we have 11 FDA compliant. So like all of these 11 ones here, these are FDA compliant just for sale into the United States, all right, into Mexico and into the Caribbean. Now, for example, Chrissy Boone, who is one of our design team up in Canada, Chrissy can sell all 30 plus colors in Canada because obviously Canada is under a similar jurisdiction to the UK. So it's a little bit complicated. Now, from a point of view of like you as a Flower Pro member in the United States or in other countries, it's no problem for you to order. Like if you put in, like say, went onto Google and you put in sugar flare eucalyptus, you can obviously buy that from several online stores in the UK. And it's no problem bringing in one little pot. It's just we can't import it because it has to go through border control, and so that's why we can't sell certain colors. We used to sell the whole sugar flare range, but then about 15 years ago FDA changed some of the compliant colors, and then things were stopped in customs and so returned back to the UK. And so that's where, as I said, but for an individual it's no problem in you bringing in a eucalyptus from sugar flare, for example, to make life easier. Now, in the color wheel here, in the color theory, it talks in here about, remember, not all colors and brands offer the same shades, especially pinks, reds, greens, blues, and purples, violets are typically the ones that are going to vary a lot by manufacturer to manufacturer. So that means, for example, if we're talking about, say, like, for example, like violet color, all right, this is, for example, just to show you this, all right, this is and this is the sort of thing I do a lot with my students at the French pastry school. And then this is, for example, a Wilton, and generally Wilton are paste colors. They're a little thicker, all right, so generally some people don't really care for these because it's a bit of a pain to get these out of the pot, but you can sort of see, as I said, that's some of the Wilton one. And then this is the Pro Gel here. And then if I just take a brush with some water here, all right? So you can see here, this is the Americolor one. It looks very blue, all right? Now violet is going to be more blue, okay? Just cleaning my brush here. I'm just using some water here, but this is Wilton one. Now Wilton is a nice violet, it's a good violet to use, and especially if you're coloring you want, but you see the huge difference in there, and they're both called violet, all right? So on the container, on both of them, they're called violet, all right? But and then this is the rainbow dust one, which again is sort of comparable to the Wilton one, all right? It's just, as I said, this is the rainbow dust one here. All right, so those are both very cool, but I just wanted to point that out to you because you can see the Americolor one is very blue compared to the others, all right? So those are the sort of things that you can face when you're doing cakes and things. You can, of course, sometimes be going to color your paste for, fondant, for buttercream, sugar paste, but especially if you're doing flowers, coloring your flower paste, and you're going to find that different brands are going to offer different colors. But generally speaking, in the pinks and red family, the greens, blues, and purple violets, that's where it's going to vary a lot across the board from manufacturer to manufacturer. Now, then other brands, it doesn't really matter that, however, many of the standard colors such as lemon yellow, leaf green, royal blue will not vary much between brands. So if you take references there, you take, as I said, Pro Gel yellow, and you take Wilton yellow, these are pretty much going to give you the same color, because all of the companies use pretty much the same basic ingredients. And that's where it's going to change a little bit from country to country, because most of the basic colors are going to be printable colors everywhere, all right? Because like, for example, this has got, like yellow, which is used in other foods and things as well. So it's, as I said, pretty much a standard color. So lemon yellow, leaf green, royal blue, most of those just standard basic colors are not going to really vary a lot, like I just showed you on the violet, okay? It talks in here about that the difference will be in consistency. So that's why we just talked about, you know, like the Wilton ones, you have to use a toothpick to pop those out, get that out. Some people find that a little bit of a pain. You know, a lot of people prefer like the gels or the sort of liquid gels type of one because it's a little bit easier for you to squeeze out. But as I said, it depends really, as I said, where you live. And that's also why we generally avoid food colors from the supermarket, grocery store, as these are usually a liquid or diluted color. So if you go to, say, a grocery store or supermarket and you buy like the McCormick, you see that's why you're going to need like 30 drops of that green, because it's going to be the very liquidy. All right, so generally speaking, I would steer away from like grocery store, supermarket colors. Now I will say that also here in the US and in the UK, like in the UK especially, you will have quite a large cake decorating area, and they do carry the more professional brands. Okay, here in the United States, if you go into Hobby Lobby, they have basically it's a knockoff of Americolor, but it's still a professional grade gel color. And of course, Michael's Craft Store here in the US as well, they carry Wilton. All right, but as I said, but you know, grocery stores, supermarkets generally have to be a little bit more wary of the brand. Okay, but if it's liquidy, I wouldn't suggest buying it, because you're going to have to use a lot of it to get the concentration of color. It also talks about that. That was also going to affect the paste consistency. You know, when I did my episode on making the flour gum paste, you know, it talked about it's okay if you're making it in the mixer. In your mixer, you could use airbrush color, liquid color, it doesn't matter, because you're going to adjust it at the end with the powdered sugar. Whereas when you have, if you're making white gum paste, or you're taking, you know, commercial gum paste in white, just like with fondant, and you're coloring it, then the thing is, you'll find if you're using a liquid color, it's going to make it very sticky. Okay, also consider the brand of flour paste, gum paste, or sugar paste, or old fondant. Now, that is very important, and again, something I do in color theory with my students at the French pastry school, in that we talk about, you know, different brands of rolled fondant or sugar paste have pH balance. You know, pH is based on alkaline or acid, and I actually do a test when I'm at the French pastry school. So for example, that if you take purple or violet and you add it to some brands of sugar paste or rolled fondant, they will turn like an ink blue. And it talks in here about that some people you can add a little pinch of baking soda. That will help to stabilize the color, almost to neutralize the pH balance. And it just depends across the board. Now, so at the French pastry school, Massa Ticino, which is a Calabao brand, Calabao is one of our sponsors, and at the French pastry school we use the Massa Ticino brand for some of in the baking program. And so I usually show my students as sort of an example. If you take a little ball of Massa Ticino and you take a ball of, say, Renshaw fondant, and I put 1 drop of purple in each, one will be a beautiful violet color, the other one was going to be like this ink blue color, a little bit like I showed you that Americolor color. And it's just a chemical reaction, all right? So that's also why when you're coloring, especially more fondant and sugar paste, it's good sometimes to have a couple of different brands. So for example, in the cake program, when my students do their final project, if they're doing anything in blues and purples and those colors, they would always use Renshaw fondant, not the Massa Ticino, because it doesn't, as I said, you cannot color it purple, or blues also change color. And now that also will happen with commercial flour and gum paste as well, because flour and gum paste, like for example Sadie Ice brand, all right, that is basically just modified sugar paste or rolled fondant. So they're starting off with a sugar paste, they're adding gum to it, and several companies around the world that produce flour paste or gum paste, that is all they're doing, is they're taking their fondant and basically adding gum and shortening to it to make it like gum paste. So the thing is, the pH balance isn't going to be any different. Okay, so those are things to consider, and that's also, don't get frustrated when that happens, because it's just a chemical reaction. All right, so probably if you try a different brand, like I just showed you with the violet colors, it's going to give a totally different look. All right, so that's why it's always a good idea to have several brands of color available to try out, because you could try one color, it won't work, and you try another color, it's going to give you a perfect shade. All right, now commercial flour paste and gum paste sometimes contains titanium dioxide. Not all of the brands, all right, but some of the commercial, because again, like Sadie Nice gum paste is just converted modified fondant. So most fondant companies use titanium dioxide, which we talked about when we did the making gum paste. You know, this is titanium dioxide in gel form, All right, and this is like a Americolor gel. It's just with glycerin, and this is powdered titanium dioxide. This is the Sugar In brand. So these are available. Most companies do white gel or white powder. And so if you add those to your, that's what a lot of commercial gum paste has in it to make it white. Remember in the episode on making the gum paste, I talked about it. If you're making flowers that you want to be whiter, like roses, you can, if you want to, add some titanium dioxide to your scratch homemade gum paste. You can also, that would mean that because if you don't have titanium, if you make your own homemade paste, like the Tylose paste, it's going to be more translucent. And then when you use commercial paste, or if you add white to it, it's going to make it opaque. So what that will actually mean is that it means that when you are coloring it, if you took, say Tylose gum paste with no whitener added to it, and you took, let's say, some satinized gum paste, which would have titanium in it, and you use like 1 drop of purple in 10 grams of color, it's going to look a different color because of the translucency. So that will affect it as well. All right. So there are lots of different variances there. And then also, like in volume 1 to 3, they obviously have paste charts. This is how I standardize my color choices. So when I teach most of my classes, I use obviously Renshaw brand a lot. I also use obviously Arati's paste, the Sugar In paste now that's available on the market. But in the volume 1 especially, we talked about, as I said, formulas. So there are color formulas in the front, and because the Renshaw gum paste, as you'll see in most of the videos, it dries very quickly, I generally add the sugar paste or rolled fondant to it. So like here, it's got your formulas. So for example, in the UK, you use 85 grams of carnation red flower modeling paste, add 10 grams of deep purple sugar paste, and 5 grams of chocolate brown sugar paste. Or you could add a little bit of Pro Gel Ruby to your red paste to give it that blood red color. Here in the US, 85 grams of red gum paste, add 10 grams of bright purple rolled fondant, and 5 grams of brown. So you see, adding a little bit of brown, a little bit of purple, to purple, then a tiny amount of brown to red is going to give you a blood red color. And that's sort of the color I used when I did the red roses here. All right, so on the red roses there, that nice sort of almost like a blood red. Whereas obviously if you're doing a flower like a poinsettia, you're just going to use red. Now the Renshaw, the colors of Renshaw gum paste in the US market are actually no longer available, but we do have a large stock we have frozen. So basically when they decided, they're reformulating the paste for the US market, but we do have that at nicholaslodge.com. So if you're looking for any of the red gum paste, blue gum paste, green, yellow, we do have that on our website, okay? And we did mention that actually in book 3, okay? But so that is obviously how you would do that. But that also means if you're looking at those formulas and you don't have, let's say, red pre-colored gum paste or flower paste, you're making your own homemade Tylose paste, you just would make it as a red batch like I showed you in the mixer, okay? And then you could just put 2 drops of purple, 1 drop of brown, or you could just make your red, and then when you want to color it for your red roses, just add a little tiny bit of purple, a little tiny bit of brown. That's going to give you that blood red color. All right. When we also talk later on about the air drying clay, you'll see I'm going to talk a little bit about making reds from pink and yellow, and also making like a blood red color as well with yellow and blue added to that. But and then also, as I talked about this on some of my lives and things, this is downloadable on our website. This is a Renshaw fondant guide, okay? This is a Renshaw fondant guide. But so although this is made to use fondant, but this will help you in understanding sort of how to achieve different colors. So this is of course done by mixing. So if you were making this like sort of a little bit like a Kelly green, like a bottle green color, you see it's 20 parts green to 1 part blue, okay? So those, sorry, the purple. So these are, what colors you can obviously use here. And so like when you have purple, so see, like if you're making, like if you take violet or purple color and pink, it's going to sort of change the color. You see, like making like almost like a darker magenta color. But you can go through all the different colors and use those. So here you see this is like the violet, purple and pink together, you see? So different colors, and then add in like a little bit of pink to your brown or yellow to your brown, of course, and give it more chestnut. A lot of these things are fairly, you know, normal, because you'll think of them a little bit like sometimes makeup and things as well. When you're blending makeups, you think about sort of adding yellow to brown is going to give it a little more of a chestnutty color. But so when you're doing that, so if you were going to let's say, for example, you need to color some paste, all right? So you know what colors you need to use. So then what you would do there is, I'm going to take just a little bit of pink, a little bit of purple color. You see? So this is really how I come up with a sort of how I would do the formulas. I generally just mix it up as almost just a mixed color. I'm going to take a couple of toothpicks here. All right, and I'm just going to take a little bit of gel there. You see, then I'm going to take about a comparable amount of pink. You're just doing this with a toothpick, and it just gives you a sort of a generally like an idea. So those are about comparable amounts of the two colors, you see. And then, so what I would do then, so, you know, I'm working from a fondant chart that tells me if I use equal amounts of the two colors. So I'm just going to now blend these colors together, you see. So this will give me a nice sort of, more of a sort of towards a purple, all right. Now, if you took like for example, like twice the amount of pink, so I've got twice the amount of pink, you see how now it becomes even more purple, you see. So you see how the color, because purple is more towards the reds or the pinks, whereas violet is more towards your blues. So by changing, going to high ratio, so that means that in theory, if I wanted this color, which you can try that out on, you know, a piece of white paper. So like if you wanted your paste to be that color, all right. So all you would then do is you would use, for example, like, you know, like you can use it obviously just by the drop, because the Pro Gels, you can drop them. You could do like 1 drop of purple and then 2 drops of pink into your white gum paste, mix that through, and it will give you this color, okay? So that's really like the way that I a lot of times will sort of formulate how I would use gel colors. But it's just a question sometimes of just playing around with the color a little bit, and also sometimes different brands of color. But I showed you, you know, all of these different companies have color charts on the internet. So just look at the different colors. So if you're in the UK and you use a lot of sugar flare colors, you'll have guidance then on the color combinations to use, all right? And that will help you a lot in understanding colors. And so it talks about that, you know, color charts of Squire's Kitchen, Satin Ice, they all have, as I said, they all have color charts available. Now below is a list of brands I use here in the US for certain colors if I'm coloring the paste from scratch for flowers. As I explained, most of my formulas I use Renshaw paste, but if I was making white paste and going to color it a certain color, these are what generally brands I use. Now I don't use one brand across the board, because in the US, as I explained, although I'm a Renshaw ambassador, but we only have 11 Pro Gel colors, and I can't make every color I need from 11 colors. Like for example, you know, when you mix in certain colors, you need certain colors. So, so colors, Chef Master Ribbon will not fade. It's especially good for making pale pink roses or cherry blossoms. So this is Chef Master brand. All right, so this is Chef Master. It's called Ribbon, and it's a pink, so it's Ribbon Pink. And this is a no fade pink, all right? So this is an excellent pink. It's very concentrated, all right? But as I said, this will, and again, I'm just going to show you because this is good to sort of like see the difference between the different hues. But this is really good for like cherry blossoms, roses, like the pink roses I showed on the hoop. Those are from my Renshaw Academy class. Those are made with obviously pink gum paste, but if pink Renshaw paste. But if I was going to color white paste from scratch, this is the generally brand I would use. Now in the UK, it talks about this Sugar Flare brand, all right? This is actually, I've had this over 30 years since I moved to the US. I still have some Sugar Flare colors, and colors don't go bad, all right? In the UK and Europe, they have to by law put a best before use date, but basically dusting powders, gel colors, there's nothing in them that's going to go bad, all right? But the reason I want to show you this is, for example, also this is pink, and this is just like I showed you with the violet. You'll see a big difference in the sort of the hues of the the two different ones here. So you can see this one here, and then this one is a lot brighter, okay? And you can see here, this is a lot brighter. So when you add this to, it's going to be a little bit more of, not towards, a little bit towards a neon pink, all right? Even when you make it pale, still going to have a little bit of brightness to it. This is a much more like if you're making, say, pale pink English roses, you're making sweet peas, you're making flowers like cherry blossoms. As I said, Sugar Flare brand is a really good one, or the Chef Master, as I said, ribbon pink, all right? So again, you can see that, but that's why I wanted just to show you the different color, because you can see how different the different brands are. So the Chef Master ribbon, and Chef Master sell that in pots like that. You can also buy it in a large container like this. This is actually the No Fade purple one, okay? So they come in different sizes. Chef Master No Fade Purple is a beautiful amethyst color. This is what I use like when I do my Ondina Rose, but this is truly is a purple, all right? And this is no fade. So this means that when you're using this to, for example, use on a cake, it won't fade, okay? But you can see how, but you see the beautiful color. So I use this color like for, if I was gonna color white paste scratch, for like calla lilies and flowers like that. But if we go back to our, even to our Pro Gel, you can see here, you can see here but you can see the big difference there in the color. But you see this is much more towards an amethyst color, all right? So really this is a true to me is more towards a true purple, okay? So because a lot of people get confused with purple and violet, it is quite different, all right? And you can see that on your color wheel and color chart there. But you can see, yeah, this is a lovely color for Ondina Rose when you're making like purple calla lilies, things like that, if you're gonna color from homemade from scratch, okay? Then Chef Master also colors I use from Chef Master Burgundy Wine, all right? So this is the Burgundy Wine color. Okay, so burgundy wine, this is a beautiful color for like when you're making, like these are some chrysanthemums here, like mums and things like that. When you want that sort of like burgundy beet color, this is a really nice one I use a lot. Again, just showing you this, because this is really the easiest way for you to sort of understand the difference between the different colors here. So here, so you've got this. But this is going to give you a really, really dark, almost like a beet color, okay? So it's a nice color. So just doing this onto a plate makes it a little bit easier for you to see. But that color is, as I said, you put that into paste, it's going to give you a really nice burgundy. And again, you know, I use several Americolors, but like for example, a burgundy Americolor is not a nice burgundy. It's very brown. So as I said, so that's why I'm sort of sometimes quite specific about brands of what I would recommend using, just based on it's going to give you the best color. And anytime if you ever have any questions, you know, of course I don't know all brands of color because there's so many color companies now and different brands of color, but I will help to try and put you in the right direction. So if you ever do have a question about paste colors, gel colors, I'll try and help you as best I can. All right, but this gives you a nice color there. And then, so burgundy wine. Now, Wilton Moss Green is the best moss for leaves, all right? So this is Wilton Moss Green, and this color here is actually what we use as the benchmark when we did the Renshaw paste, colored paste, because I've used the Wilton Moss Green for years and years and years. So when we made the green, I asked them to match it to the moss green. So to me, this is the most natural color on the market. And if you look here, this is actually the, I'm going to talk a little bit in a moment about, but this is actually the Renshaw Green, all right? And this is Wilton Moss Green, you see? So that's the Renshaw Green straight out of the pack. That's the Wilton Moss Green I colored this morning in some paste, you see? So that's going to give you your best sort of like natural green. Don't ever use, I'm not saying don't ever use leaf green, but when you use just what's called leaf green, it's not really leaf green. I mean, I've never seen a leaf that color. Now, we sometimes, of course, take that and add other colors to it. But generally speaking, now in the UK, it talks about it a little bit in there about that, like they have gooseberry green, you know, gooseberry is a fruit. in England, and gooseberry is, as I said, a nice green as well. And different companies do avocado, like Americolor have an avocado color, but I like the Wilton moss green. And Wilton also have another color called juniper green, and the juniper green is a little bit darker. Obviously it would be used for juniper, but it's a little bit more gray green color. So this is also quite a good one to mix with blues for your eucalyptus sort of family of colors. Okay, so that as I said is how you would do that. And then Wilton Creamy Peach, that's the peach I definitely prefer. So when I did the David Austin rose, the Abraham Darby rose, creamy peach and pink. So if you mix like this one and the ribbon pink together, it's going to give you a beautiful blush color. Okay, but this is the color I've used like for our peach color Gerber daisies, peach roses, because again, Americolor peach, it says peach on it, but if I did the same test like I showed you with violet, it's going to be very, very orange. Okay. So that's always a good thing to do. Just get like a piece of paper or paper plate and just take your 3 brands of violet or your 4, whatever you have of peach, and just try them and you'll see the difference. And then maybe pick one that's suited to your project you're doing. Okay, so that's a good one to use. Wilton Delphinium Blue is a good blue for hydrangeas and forget-me-nots. Okay. So this is called Delphinium Blue, and this is a nice color for obviously delphiniums, but also for when you're doing like blue hydrangeas and forget-me-nots as well. Okay, and that color, this is the Renshaw Blue, you see, and then this is Delphinium. And what I've done is I've just added a little tiny bit of baby blue to it. So I used Delphinium and then just a little tiny bit of baby blue added to the Delphinium. And that, see, gives me a spot-on color combination, all right? Because we had a question about, making the eucalyptus color. Unfortunately, I don't have any of the sugar flare to color, but as I said, those of you in the UK and Europe, sugar flare have a color called eucalyptus. But when I did in the new book, so when I did the eucalyptus, so remember there's of course 3 varieties of eucalyptus. Can we come out a little bit, Scott, with the screen? So when we did the eucalyptus in here, okay, so when I did the first one, I've got mixed 3 parts blue and 1 part green, okay, and a little bit of gray. So when you do this, and I'm going to talk about air drying clay, I'm going to show you how to get that sort of color. But so what you do, see, this is like 30 grams of blue and 10 grams of green. And but as I said, that is Renshaw pre-colored paste. But then I can also take my paste that I've just made, so you can just use your paste that you've just colored with the Delphinium Blue, a little bit of baby blue, and then just the Wilton Moss Green. But you see, when you then mix the blue and the green together, it's 3 parts, so of course depending on how much you do, you're going to get this nice sort of sage color, you see? And this is going to give you a base color for your eucalyptus. And then of course you can add just a little bit of gray, so the Pro-Gel gray, which we have in the US, and then of course Pro-Gel gray is available in other countries as well. This is again the only company, that I've used, I should say, that have a gray, because Americolor came out with some, like, it was called like Nifty Shades of Gray, and it was like a box with like 6 different gray tones, like a smoke and ash, but none of them to me are nice sort of silver gray color. And so you see, then you're going to get that base color, and then you'd add a little bit of gray to that, you see? All right, so everything is achievable. It's just that you might have to play around, but using the formula I showed you where you take the 2 colors and then just play around with like 1 part to 1 part, and that's how you would do it. Or you take, using your high precision scale. So using your, you need to use this, remember, as your high precision scale, which we talked about in some of the episodes. On the high precision scale, remember this will scale 1/10 of a gram. So what you do is you would try, for example, 1 gram of say blue and 1 gram of green. You mix the 2 together and then see how the color is. Because remember, this will scale 1/10 of a gram, so it's very accurate. A normal scale is not going to be accurate enough for this. So if you do, then if it wasn't quite the color you wanted, try like 2 grams of one color, 1 gram of the other. and then you find your formula. So now you know it's a 2-to-1 ratio. So that means, you know, 200 grams of the first color, 100 grams of the next color, or whatever you need to use. So it's sort of a very easy way to sort of, and then of course just document those color combinations, and then you'll be fine for going on to make that anytime, and you can reproduce that. When I did the vases episode, when I talked about the Wedgwood blue, that was again a question of playing around with different brands of color. And if you look on that handout on the download, you know, I used a combination of some Pro Gel, I used some, you know, different brands of color to get the right sort of Wedgwood shade. But it, you know, sometimes can take, you know, 15 to 20 minutes. It could take 2 hours to develop the right color. When you're doing gold, use AmeriColor Gold, and I use that for cream color. So like when I'm doing like my maple leaves, so again in book 3, so when you're doing your like sugar maple, the ginkgo leaves, you know, this dark cream color, which is really the best color to use as a foundation for anything autumn fall colors, because it's not as stark as white, it's more natural. But when I make this dark cream, which I use for quite a lot of different projects, I use the AmeriColor Gold. All right, before this came out, because this is a relatively, you know, hasn't been on the market that many years, but before that I would use ivory and a little tiny bit of yellow. Okay, and then they brought out gold, which really is a mixture of the two. Now the other thing is when you look at the labeling, so when you actually look at colors, all right, so when you look at colors here, for example, this is turquoise, it tells me that this is obviously made from yellow, so it's obviously got yellow here and then blue. So the thing is that you have an idea about what is actually used to make up the gel. So if you don't have, or you ran out of it, you should be able to duplicate that using the colors that are in there. Of course, proportion is sometimes what takes a little bit of practice. So Rainbow Dust Pro Gels, I love the gray for making muted colors, so I use that a lot in greens. You can use that in all different color combinations. If you add a little bit of that to pink, you know, it's going to give you that sort of muted pink, more of an old rose color. And then I use Pro Gel for my basic colors, but obviously talks about in the US we only have 11 of those. Now in the UK, Sugar Flare also have Red Extra and Black Extra. This is super concentrated. This is the Black Extra here, all right? So this is again 30 years old. But this is Black Extra, so it's still fine, all right? So it's still perfectly okay, all right? So it really looks like coal almost. And they also have a Red Extra, and that is really good for like I showed on making gum paste using powder colors. That would give you that same sort of intensity without changing the consistency too much. Okay, then Sugar Flare Pink, which we talked about already, that is also, it doesn't say no fade, but it is. Okay, so it is a no fade pink as well, and that's important also when you're doing very pale pink, like buttercream cupcakes, you're doing flooding of icing cookies, you're doing things even in air drying clay, and you're using that color, because what will happen with a lot of brands of pink, you'd make your pale pink buttercream or icing, and what would happen is literally in a few hours it will fade out and it just becomes very washed out and almost looks sort of a gray pink color, and so certain brands are going to be much more stable. Then it talks in here about the Pro Gels, of course, in the UK and Europe and Canada coming over 30 colors. All right, as I said, it talks about so obviously the 30 colors, you've got several different color greens. So like when I did the videos, which I shot over in the UK, of course, in March. So when I did the eucalyptus, when I did the baby blue eucalyptus. I talked about, the seeded eucalyptus. I used some of the, here, the silver dollar one. And, so I used a different green in here. So the formulas in here are, this is in the new book, which comes out next week. So in the formulas here, again, you've got your different formulas. But see, like for the eucalyptus sage color, you're going to use, and then there's also the sea green teal color. So sea green is a Pro Gel color, which we don't have in the US, all right? And so there what I would do is I'd use our turquoise and add a little bit of green to it. So, you can just play around with your colors a little bit. But that's why it's broken down to the UK and the US colors, all right? As I said, any questions you ever have about that, don't obviously don't ever hesitate to ask me. Now, just before I go on talk about dusting powders and air drying clay, I want to talk on Pantone. I want to talk a little bit about suggestions here. When you are working with a client, so you have a bride come to you, the bride's going to bring with you but maybe a piece of swatch of fabric, an invitation. She's going to tell you what flowers she's having, so you might look up on the internet like what variety of rose she's carrying. But also never tell the client or bride you'll match the color exact, all right? Because when you're coloring with food colors, we're limited. We're not using like ink, dye, ribbon, where you have, you can achieve any color you want to. We're working within food colors, all right? So some colors are going to be very, very difficult to get, all right? There are some of the really, really bright, vibrant colors where you might not be able to get your paste the right color, but you should hopefully be able to add the dust on the top. But talking more about like if you were covering a cake in fondant and she wanted it to match the bridesmaids' dresses, you don't ever say, yes, I'll make it the exact color. You always just say, I'm going to need to do some testing on this. So, you get the swatch of fabric and you just do some testing. And the other thing is that on a wedding cake, I would often add a coloring surcharge. Like an example, one of my students at the French pastry school last year in December for her final project cake, her cake was inspired by an ornament, a Christmas tree ornament. It was like a taupe color with like a rose gold on the top, which is still a very popular color combination. But it actually took her 2 hours playing around with colors to achieve that color fondant. Now, if you had a business and you had an employee who took 2 hours to color the fondant, you're having to pay them for 2 hours labor. That all has to be paid by somebody. So the client will sometimes, you have to explain that this is a very complex color to achieve. And so there's going to be a development fee, all right? And then the other thing is that test your colors. Now, this applies to gum paste and also to fondant, especially. And so what you do is you'd match the color, all right? So let's say, for example, I'm going to use this as an example. This is the color the bride is giving you to match. So you then would match your fondant to this. Let's say this is a piece of ribbon. And then what you would do is you take a small ball of that and you just would put it on a windowsill by a window, or just somewhere where it's exposed to direct sunlight, to daylight. And then the rest of the product, let's say the other 500 grams or however much you have, you wrap in plastic wrap in a Ziploc bag, put it under your counter or in a cabinet so it's not exposed to the air. And you leave that piece of fondant, all right, for 24 hours. Now, after 24 hours, you're going to look at it. Now, the thing that will happen a lot is if, for example, you had this on your window ledge and after 24 hours that the color had faded a lot, when you turn it over, the part that hasn't been exposed to light is going to be it's going to be a lot darker. So then you would know quite a lot. If you look at the whole ball and it hasn't really changed, then you know that color is stable. So it might have faded, but generally after 24 hours, the color will stabilize. So then what you can do is then you know that's okay, all right? But what you don't want to do is cover a cake with fondant or make flowers, and then you end up with them fading too much. So what you might have to do is go back and add more of your base color just to pump that color up. So again, talking a little bit about experience like with my students at the French pastry school in their final project wedding cake, which is over 5 days, the students who are a little bit apprehensive about the color or matching it to their storyboard, I always tell them do your color on the fondant on the first day, then they put it by the window ledge, they leave it overnight. The next morning when they come into class at 6 a.m., they can check and see whether the color is going to be okay. And if it's too light, they would just add more color. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to cover your cake and then you find that it's going to fade. Now, things you also have to just take into consideration, which is just more about just general things, is when you're delivering a cake, a wedding cake, and that includes flowers as well. A few years ago, we went to a convention, a cake convention, ICES convention in Iowa, and driving from Atlanta to Iowa, which is about a 19-hour drive over 2 days, the cake I covered with a pale gray sugar paste rolled fondant. And when I actually got to Iowa, because of the sun was mostly on the right-hand side of the vehicle, when I opened the car up, take the cake out, it wasn't in a box because it was too tall, but the cake was completely faded on one side. So it looked like it'd almost been airbrushed or ombre, and I got away with it. But the thing is, that could be disaster, okay? So that's why now, like, when you can buy those UV shades that you put on your windows, or you have you know, a UV filter put on your back of the car and the side of the car where the cake is going to be. All of those things can affect it. Daylight, even you could take a wedding cake outside for an outside wedding, a barn wedding, and in 2 hours the color could totally fade out. So that's why you always want to check the stability of color, okay? Fluorescent light is also bad. Now it does say here that the natural daylight and fluorescent light are the worst culprits, but keeping flowers away from direct light is the best option. Dusting powders will fade over time, but not as much as paste. Now, I will mention this is only mostly on the blues and the pinks and the purples, all right? You generally won't have problems with yellow. And also remember, we talked about that in the making gum paste episode as well. When you're doing, for example, like colors like red, the colors will need to develop, okay? Because the color takes a little time to develop. And as I said, so those are things there. Now, as far as dusting powders go, in episode 19, we talked about dusting powders. So dusting powders can be mixed together in different ratios. And again, when you're doing this, you're generally just going to try out the dust. So, for example, many years ago when I started making stargazer lilies, I take a... So this is American Beauty, which is my pink color. And this is plum, okay? Because I use a fuchsia in the middle of the lily, so the lily which is covered here in book 2, all right, so you can see here the lily on the front there. Now when I made this original color, I took a real lily, so a lot of times I will work from nature because that's really the best way to achieve the perfect color. And so when you're taking the pink, you know, you would maybe try, and again, like on a white napkin, you'll sort of see the color, okay? You'll see the sort of color that looks good, but maybe it's going to be a little bit, as I said, bright. So then you can take just like a little bit of plum into there. And you see this is going to give me more the sort of the color I want, a little bit more muted. Okay? So then what you do is once you've got this, you sort of have an idea, you're going to use, now I use these spoons a lot. You can buy these online. They're called smidgen, pinch and dash spoons, all right, little tiny spoons. You can also use like coffee, these are coffee stirrer spoons, or little tiny ones, but just something as small as possible, okay? And so then you see the thing is you're just going to just try your color. And so what I did is I formulated this out. There was 3 parts of this and then 1 part of plum. Okay, so when I make stargazer lilies, so once you, again, just like using the digital scale, you're going to do this on a really small scale. So you just put like 3 scoops of this and 1 scoop of plum, and then you mix that together, try the color out, and if that's the color, you document that. So you see, then I have a stargazer base, and so then when I mix this up for classes, I'll need to obviously make some more of this at some time. But you see how this is going to give you the color. But you can see that's the sort of pink, but you see it's quite, adding a plum to there. And then of course, once you know the formula, it's 3 to 1, then that means I could use 1/4 teaspoon, because I use fairly large amounts in a class, 1/4 teaspoon of plum, and then you could do 3/4 teaspoons of the pink, the American Beauty pink, or obviously on a larger scale, 1 teaspoon of plum and 3 teaspoons of pink, all right? The reason, and then if they were both the same brand, all right, so both colors, these are of course different brands, different size pots, but if you were buying from, say, Rainbow Dust and you got the same cut, you literally could use 1 pot of one and then 3 pots of another if you needed a large quantity. And then I keep these just with the label maker, so I would just keep these colors, as I said, ready, and then whenever I need to make stargazer lilies, I know I've got the exact color. And I have lots of different ones. You know, this is for a sort of example of fall rose, so this is some brown and some pink to make this sort of almost like a fall color. Remember the autumn fall basket I had on the wedding cake from the basket toppers, so that's the base color I use on the rose. So you know, trying the colors out in that way first makes it easier to then achieve the color that you need, and you're going to be able to then, as I said, document that, and you'll never have any problems, and you'll have the dusting powder already pre-mixed up. So dusting powders, so you know, you do it with a small coffee stirrer or the pinch spoons, and then you of course can go up onto a larger scale. Now, as far as air drying clay, you can use a chart available online from Padico, which is Hardy Clay. So Hardy Clay, all right, is made by Padico, which is a Japanese company. All right, so Padico is a Japanese company, and they produce several different brands or types of clay in Japan. Hardy clay being one of them. All right. Now they do have, you can order this, which one of our members talked about couple of months ago when we first started. This is a Padico chart, so this is actually a Japanese one I have from a school in Japan, but you can order this in English as well. So you see this side here is Modena, so this is Modena clay, which obviously Modena is soft. So these are the Modena colors, and Katy Sue sell Modena but not the colors in it, all right? So this has got different color formulations. And then this is Hardy Soft, all right? Now this is actually they're using just the white, but the Hardy Soft white is the one I'm using here. Now all of these colors are achievable using yellow, pink, blue, and black. Okay, so these are the colors you need, so yellow, pink, blue, and black. And you can see you've got all these different color formulations, all right? And when you buy this, it comes with this. So this is very similar to my concept of using a size guide, all right? So the way this works, all right, so let's say, for example, you're going to make like this color here, all right, you use I of white and A of pink, okay? So basically what I was doing is making a pale. So I is the largest one. So what you do there is you take your Hardy clay and you'd actually fill up the cavity with your Hardy clay here. And it comes with this little, and so all you do is you're just going to fill this up level and you're just going to scrape off the top of this, which of course your little scraper will do the same thing as well, all right? But you see, you just fill this up level, and then using a little spike, you're just going to take that out of the mold like that, okay? And so that would give you your like number 11, and then you would do the same with A, all right, which would be this little tiny one here, which you'd fill up with pink. You'd scrape that off, you take that off, and that means that using, very much like the size guide, using that formulation, what that's going to do, that's going to give you, that will give you the sort of the same color. And of course you can do this on a, you know, however much you need of that, but that gives you the colors. But as I said, they are done with using the colors. Now what I've done, because I was playing around with this morning, so this is not on your handout, but I will post this once I finish today. This is just the sizes. So all it is, I filled each of the molds up with the Hardy clay and then rolled them into a ball. So A is 2 small, B is 3, C is 4S, D is 4, E is 5, F is 6L. That, you know, we don't very often use a large size, but you know, remember, very rarely we ever do. We've done a couple of times in episodes, but what that means is 6 large ones to go about 1/4 below and 3/4 above, okay? And then 7, 8, and 11. So what this means is a little bit easier, and if you were sort of making several flowers, you could just make, you know, say 5 number 11, so you just make one on your size guide, then make another 4 the same size, all right? We have had questions from members that relates to this as well. You know, how much do each of the balls weigh on the size guide? Well, the problem with the size guide, because the size guide is very tiny, even on a micro scale like this, and especially with air drying clay, but with sugar, it won't register on there. So that's why, you know, we don't do the small balls of paste with sort of weight, scaled weight. There we go, but I'll post this for you, so that just makes it a little bit easier, all right? So that means you don't need to have this, you know, you can of course use this if you buy one, but as I said, and I'll post these just for you, just so you've got an idea about the different color combinations. But just looking at some of the things here, all right? So like, for example, here we have I and I of red and yellow, okay? And if you take, the pink and yellow, okay? So this is pink and yellow, so pink and yellow, equal amounts. So that means you could just make a number 12 ball, you can make whatever ball of that. And you see, if you then take and, you know, these are pretty accurate as well, giving you the sort of the color. So if you take your, so this is equal amounts of the yellow and the pink. And remember, the pink, the magenta is very bright and it's very concentrated. And you see, by mixing those two together, it's then going to turn it into a lovely red for a poppy, okay? So of course, you know, Hardy clay comes, you know, but if you don't have like red clay, you can just use your yellow and your pink. You see? So you'll have this beautiful red, okay? And then like, for example, this one here, up here, this lovely, you know, again, this would be like comparable to the burgundy wine color. So if you're doing, for example, like the colors like the burgundy chrysanthemums, things like that. So you're just using, see the I and then the H and the F. So I've got the three colors here. So this is pink, yellow, and blue. And then you're just going to just take these together. Just going to mix this together like this. Now, I do mention here about in the hardy clay, you can use the chart available. The fondant charts are not ideal for clay, as the air drying clay colors are much more saturated. That, you know, magenta color is extremely saturated. But you see how you're going to get this beautiful, so like for, even for red roses, you see how you're going to get this sort of beautiful, you can see the difference between those two colors, you see? So this would be lovely for red roses, or in the fall for mums, for dahlias, flowers like that. And it's got a little bit of color on my hands here. That's also something just to make sure. And then in here, so I had a question, I said a little bit about using air drying clay to get like a eucalyptus color. So what I would suggest you do is use this color here. This is like a teal color, okay? So with that color there, I've got the I of the white, which is number 11, and I have an E of blue, which is a number 5, and I have a number 3 of yellow, okay? So those colors mixed together. But so you can find this, you know, I've had this from my school in Japan, but like, for example, on Etsy, you can find this, and you can find it on, as I said, different sites, and some craft stores will have it. But so you're just going to mix this together. Just going to blend this together here. You see, and you're going to get this beautiful color. So this will give you very similar color to that sea green color that I used on the video, which is a Pro Gel color. Now, the one thing that is a slight advantage of using the pre-colored hardy clay is the fact that this color will not change, you know, which we spoke about in that episode. If I took, like, say, pink food color, like when I did the David Austin rose, I just used food coloring. But the thing is that peach color will fade eventually, more than, for example, the concentrated color would. So then you see that gives you this color here, and then when you take that color, then if you took, for example, some white and you added some of that to white, you see? So you just add some to some white. But see, this is going to give you that sort of a little bit of gray in that. That's going to give you a perfect eucalyptus color. You see? All right. But you see how you're going to get this nice, see this nice eucalyptus color, and a little tiny bit of gray added to that. Just a very tiny amount of the gray, doesn't need much. But so, you know, use the coloring charts that are available online, and they will help you a lot with your hardy clay or with your, but remember, there's no problem in using gel colors and paste colors in your hardy clay. It's just that the color is not going to be as stable for so long. So I literally just use that as my base color, and then just add in the white to that. You see how you're going to get this nice, so if you're doing like the baby blue eucalyptus or the paler version of that for the cedar eucalyptus, and that would give you the right sort of color. Okay, so those are little tips there of getting those, achieving those nice colors. I'll put those in my, but you're going to blend your color through there like so. But as I said, I will post that the size chart here. So this just sort of just lists the, so you can just write those down somewhere, and then you've just got that for, just if you want to. Of course you can, I found this is a little bit of, and the other thing is if you're changing out different colors, you have to sort of wipe it and whatever. So I found the size guide worked a little bit easier for me personally, and of course I'm so used to it as well. So that would be air drying clay, all right, and that's going to sort of help you in getting your colors. And there really are some beautiful colors here. And so remember, you want to make sure you use the hardy clay one. And remember, it's just your white, yellow, pink, blue, and black. And then as you can see, there's very few of them that have black on them, okay? Mostly it's your yellow, your pink, and your blue, and your white. But all of the greens there, you see all those different colors, your burgundies, all the way through are all made from those colors. Remember, they're all available through Katy Sue in the smaller 50-gram packs, okay? All right, now, last thing I want to talk about And I said, obviously today is a lot of talking, but these are all things that will help you a lot in understanding color theory and how different colors work in different products. So another thing I would recommend buying a new or used Pantone color chart, as this is the global standard of color. Now, Pantone color, they are expensive, all right? So generally, I would recommend going to eBay and buying one used. Now, this is a Pantone color chart, all right? So if you ever go into, as I said, a printer, people use this. It's a global standard. So that means that I can, like, for example, tell somebody in India, this is the color I want the poster to be, and I want it to be, Pantone 158U. And what that means is that then the printer in India will use that formula to produce that color as printed. Now, this helps a lot with colors, all right, because it also, when you look at the Pantone colors, it will tell you, so this is very much like that sort of the color I make for the Ondina Rose, all right, but it actually will tell you, you see what's in there, which is actually like rhubarb red, blue, black, and a little bit of white. So it will actually, you can actually use those to know like what food colors to achieve those colors. The other thing I've used this a lot for is when I work with a bride, all right. So let's say, for example, you were doing a wedding cake for somebody, and this is actually a life learning experience for me. When I was 16 years old, I made my first ever wedding cake. And of course, that's before I ever even knew what Pantone was. But when I did the wedding cake, I asked the bride, well, what color roses are you having on your wedding cake? And she said, oh, well, I'm having coral colored roses. All right. So basically coral I did towards a little bit more towards a sort of pinky color, like a coral pink. All right. When I actually got to the wedding, they were Sonia roses, which if she had told me, oh, the variety is Sonia, then I would have made them because they're a little bit more towards like this color, you see? And so the thing is something as easy as that, the bride telling you, no, it's a Sonia rose. So knowing the name or variety of the rose will help you a lot. But also if you're working with a bride, a client, you can actually get out your Pantone book and then the bride could say, well, that's the sort of color I want. Or for example, they may have a swatch of fabric there. You could actually, if they don't have that to let you have, you can match it. So then you know, and you just write down that this is the color you're aiming towards, okay? But you can buy these used. They're generally about $30, $35 used. Can be several $100s if you buy a new one, depending on how they're bound and things. But they are expensive. But it's a really great way to do this. So for example, that's my 375C. So that's my brand color. Just looking for my green here. Yep. So C375. So that's my sort of color. You see so that's what we use for like all of our printing and things like that. So I know the colors. But anyway, this is really going to help you a lot. And every year, each year in December, they announce the Pantone color of the year. So like, for example, like last year was like a pink, and it was actually two colors. It was like a dusky pink corally color and a blue. Not my favorite color combination. The year before was like almost like a burgundy wine color, like a Merlot wine color. But as I said, so each year there is a trend, and that is typically, especially in cake, those of you doing more cakes, but also in craft as well, will dictate really like trends in fashion, trends in interior design, home decor, will be based on Pantone color. So that's announced usually each December. So if you have a Pantone book, then you know exactly what color's coming up, and then you can just use that. Because also the other thing is I will mention, if you have a bride, send you a photograph of the color, remember, depending on your screen, also when you print out like your ink and things like that, it's never going to be the same color. So you have inconsistency. Whereas if you know that's the color the bride's using for her wedding, you've actually got the proper Pantone color in front of you. And that will really help you a lot in understanding color. All right. Yeah, sorry. That's my eyes are green here. See? So anyway, so Pantone color, so that's a great thing. But as I said, you can find them used like on eBay and places like that. You can find, as I said, Pantone color books used, very useful for designing cakes, but also for all sorts of things that you might work on. All right. But anyway, so I hope everybody's enjoyed the lesson today. Have a couple of announcements to make. So first of all, on Monday, Monday's lesson is going to be, episode will be by Arati Mirhat from India. So Arati will be joining us, and she's going to be showing you how to make cosmos. Now, Arati works with a company called Sugar In, and Sugar In. So Sugar In is an Indian-based product, so Sugar IN for India. So Sugar In, so Arati's starch-based paste, which she'll be talking a lot more about in her episode on Monday, is available in the UK through Kate Decorating Company and several other companies. And if you have questions about specifics on things, you can just post those and she'll respond to you. And then also here in the US, Sugar In is available through Sugar In North America. We also carry the product as well. And then Arati will also be using some of the other Sugar In products, some of the dusting powders and some of the different other products. And some of those things are available in the UK and the US, and some of the things are just use what's comparable, okay? Because she will be talking about Baker's Spirit, which is like a rejuvenating spirit, isopropyl alcohol. So, you know, again, if you do have any technical questions, you can ask Arati, or obviously I'll come in and if I can help in any way with that. But that's going to be on Monday. It's going to show you a beautiful sort of orange cosmos, which is nice for autumn time. But of course, you can also use those in pink and white and purple and all different colors. Like here in the United States, you know, cosmos is a huge flower. The verges that between the roads and things in the summertime are completely covered with this purple, pink and white color combination. So a lovely, lovely flower to use, very versatile. So Arati will be showing you that on Monday. All right, so I'll be popping on at like 1:45 or 6:45 just for a little update on the shipping and as I said, pre-ordering and things like that, ready for Thursday. Then obviously Arati will be taking over with her class or episode. All right, that's going to be on Monday. And then next Thursday is going to be launch day. So that's actually the official launch of the orchid mold and then the book 3 in the hoops. And I'm going to be talking about some different things related to the orchid mold and some little snippets of information about that, obviously there. Now, just so we've had an amazing response to the basket competition, overwhelming, and if you've seen all the amazing baskets that have been produced, I would love to have given everybody a prize because you all did an incredible job. And I loved also like how some of you had done, you know, obviously different styles of baskets, like you know, different you know, types of baskets with braiding. I mean, obviously, like Patricia, you did the beautiful sort of work with the extruder, and just lots and lots of really interesting. So these are all very inspirational to all of you to sort of see different ways you could do that, take that concept and do that in different ways. And some lovely ideas for also doing like, you know, like Patricia's one, you could do that as a cake, you know, and then you could put your flowers in straws into there. We also had the beautiful one with the Royal Albert roses on, like the sewing basket one, which was beautiful too. Again, that would make a lovely cake, you know. So those are really some fun things you can think of, and we talked about the flower pot cakes and that as well. But anyway, so at 4 o'clock this morning when I started judging this competition, which took me about 3 hours, all right, it was a lot of like, you know, dilemma about the sort of the style of the basket, the color combination, choice of flowers, all right. So, you know, sometimes mix in different varieties of flowers, or, you know, we've talked a little bit about that in sprays. Color combination, color balance, you know, overall, like the overall aesthetics of the basket and things. So a lot of things that were taken in consideration, but everybody did an incredible job. But I'm excited to announce, so Karen Cullington from the UK won for her air drying clay basket, all right. And Karen's was in yellow and oranges. It had David Austin roses, it had some ivy, and it was very much sort of quite English style, freestyle with the sort of the foliage and things, which I really loved on the whole thing. And then for the sugar basket, Lisette van der Waal from, I think Lisette's in, I'm not sure where she lives. Okay, sorry, Lisette. I know you're somewhere in Europe. I think you're in the Netherlands, but I'm not sure. But anyway, so congratulations, Lisette. And so Lisette actually was the first person to submit her basket, and it had beautiful sort of dark purpley colored David Austin rose and sweet peas and eucalyptus. Very, very nice color palette. And very complementary to each other, the flowers. But as I said, congratulations to everybody. Obviously, as I said, you all did an amazing job, and thank you so much for that. We are going to be doing a lot on social media, so we're going to be posting your baskets for everybody to see, because obviously they all deserve to be shown, and you all did an incredible job. And I hope you've enjoyed the experience of obviously doing the competition, but also this also helps you in understanding wiring techniques. Now, as I explained, going forward, when we start the sort of seasonal months where we're going to start like different we will be doing on some months we will be doing like projects, like a fall project where like each week I'll be showing you different things, and you'll make the components, and the idea at the end of it you'll put it together in, so everybody will do it at the same time as I'm putting it together, as like actually like a live class. And then you can make a nice display for spring or for Christmas. We're going to do a winter one with anemones and different things in, and different color hues. So that will also help a lot of you, because a lot of you have said that you in your survey you'd like some more information on wiring and putting together of flowers. So that will help you in understanding how to put things together and making the components. So rather than you just having lots of little odd things on a styrofoam block or a cake dummy, will give you an opportunity to be able to arrange things into a beautiful arrangement in air drying clay or sugar, or even combining the two as well. Okay, so anyway, but I hope you've enjoyed today's lesson. I said quite a lot of technical, a lot of talking, but I do hope everybody benefits from this and live understanding things a little bit better, how the color wheel works. And remember, use your resources. As I said, do search on the internet, like, color charts for cake decorating. And as I said, go to Sugar Flare. You'll see the different, if you have a range of Sugar Flare colors, go to Sugar Flare. You'll see all the different charts they have. And those are all available for you to download, to look at, to understand how to work with all their colors. All right, so as I said, till Monday, everybody, have a great weekend. I'll see you real soon. As I said, we'll have some information on Monday about update on the new website building and all the other exciting things that are happening ready for next week. So until then, sweet wishes. Bye.